We're doing this John Podesta interview. It's his latest interview. We will skip through it, find some key parts to put in. So let's get started.
It was like a daily drip, drip, drip. I think it was intended to be that. I think, obviously, the Russians working with Julian Assange.
He's not giving eye contact with, obviously, the Russians, with Julian Assange, but he gives eye contact with Julian Assange. This interviewer, I don't know his name, but he's not giving him eye contact on this one. Let's see. Look go back. See what he said. Beginning eye contact.
The Russians working.
Russians mentioned. He stops giving eye contact. That's interesting.
With Julian Assange, weaponized the emails to try to do maximum damage.
I also want to point out that when John Podesta does that,
with Julian Assange,
his body is not agreeing with his mouth.
Weaponized the emails to try to do.
You see how still this core was, even though we saw arms moving. This core body was still.
Maximum damage to us. The timing of the release was, it's probably important to remember, which is it came out an hour after, they started doing this an hour after Access Hollywood tape was.
The Pussygate tape.
So, I mean, I
did not know that. That's just interesting tidbit.
think it was intended to try to change the storyline to bring this back.
Now that part his body sings on, I think it was intended to change the storyline. So just on those words, his body says that's true.
To emails. I think that there was...
that's a big adjustment right there.
A guy I know who volunteered to cook at a fundraiser for Hillary, who runs a pizzeria, upscale pizzeria in Washington, D.C., was accused, along with myself, my brother, and others, of running a child sex ring out of the pizza parlor. Mainstream media debunked that instantly.
I still have some questions about that, by the way.
But you can't get...
Him saying that as he's talking about this, but his body is singing with it. And he's really, when he's throwing his hands out there and he's doing, you see his body move back and forth. He's really it's just a story, and it's ridiculousness is what he's saying in his body.
You can't pull that back. And that ended up with a guy from North Carolina, if I remember right, getting a gun, driving to Washington to do a self-investigation of what was going on in the basement of the pizzeria. I don't think the pizzeria had a basement, by the way. And firing his weapon so for the...
Now, as he said that about the guy coming up and blah, 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 doing a self-investigation, his body went still. But it wasn't still the whole time. He was going in and out of truthisms and deception.
Employees there for James Alefantis, who was the proprietor for people on in the community. This is a horrifying episode.
Sure.
But it's very hard to pull this stuff back. And Trump peddles it. His people peddle it. Bannon peddles it. Breitbart peddles it.
Shifting position.
He's still...
Shifting position a lot is a sign of discomfort. And in this case, his discomfort is in his mentality.
Calls Alex Jones and talks to him, and, the InfoWars.
Conspiracy
theories. Sandy Hook didn't happen. It was all made up to try to take your guns away. All that stuff exists. You don't see it. You don't feel it if you're largely living in reality and in a mainstream media world.
Now he's petting himself. He's got that hand movement right there. It's not that sinister anticipation. He's petting himself.
But it's
that right there. He's petting himself. Petting himself, for those of you who don't know, he's comforting himself mentally.
Undermining our democracy, and I think that the companies themselves, they've taken some steps. They have a lot of responsibility.
Companies like Facebook.
Google, etc.
Right.
That's a lot of comforting right there as he's talking about that rhetoric, that line that he's going on. It would kind of make me think that as he's petting himself and talking about this, he's either very closely involved or heavily involved with those companies and the line that he's talking about.
Do what they can to essentially not enhance this, not to create a ecosystem where the fake news it rose up. Somebody did it.
Now he's sitting there scratching himself, and I hate that this. I wish they would sit there and put these videos to where they'd actually just stay on the individuals. This drives me nuts.
I'm blanking on who did it, but they looked at. I
don't think he was blanking on that. For the little bit that we did see on the scratching, it seems more of a distraction technique as he's trying to think it out.
Facebook traffic of the 20 top, I think BuzzFeed did it. Yeah. The 20 top political stories in the mainstream media and the 20 top fake news stories that were completely debunked, and found that the likes and shares of the fake news exceeded by 20% the mainstream news. So, that.
I did find it kind of hilarious that as he's talking that, and he mentions BuzzFeed, his guy just turns and looks away like, oh. It's so sad when even the person that is supposed to be your ally in the mainstream news, doesn't even want to mention their, absolute failures in perpetrating fake news.
That's a trend that I think we're now seeing played out in Europe, in the U.S. It's undermining our democracy. It's undermining those democracies, and the Russians know how to play this game. So,
and more scratching. The Russians know how to play this game. More scratching. Your body will sit there and react when you sit there and getting uncomfortable. A lot of chair movements, shifting on your hips, crossing legs, scratching, moving your arms to reposition yourself. That is your body reacting to the discrepancies in your mind.
They did it with, they intervened directly by the use of bot farms, etc. And I think that I'm not a
nuttiness like
really pushed to comic pizza thing,
yes, the pizza thing, and Sandy Hook didn't happen, right? But other things, and he boasts about the.
He said that. I went back on it so I could look right at that. Sandy Hook didn't happen, and then watch how far his chin goes down.
Yes, the pizza thing, and Sandy Hook didn't happen, right?
Way down, but it does a double take on it.
Other things, and he boasts.
I'm gonna slow this down. It goes down, up just a slight, and down again, and then up, and it's fast. But I've slowed it down, so hopefully you see it.
Yes, the pizza thing and Sandy Hook didn't happen.
Right.
But
down,
things.
Down. That. You go down like that all the way. He was on the rhetoric of Comet Pizza. And you saw the normal head shake of yes, because that's the rhetoric he's pushing. This individual brings up Sandy Hook. And you see that head go way down in a deep agreement, but it did a double take when it came back up and then went back down again. It's a stutter on, I don't really, how do you put this? I'm trying to find a way to word this so that it's understood. He's talking about Comet Pizza. This gentleman brings up Sandy Hook. Now, he's already going, yes, Comet Pizza. That's totally fake. Now, the other videos of John Podesta, for those of you who have not seen, that is not real. We've decided, or I have decided, and there are many people disagree, that Comet Ping Pong is disinformation, is a distraction. They threw a flare somewhere and everybody ran over to it, distract you from where they did not want you to look. That's Comet Ping Pong. It's a flare. So anyways, as he's talking about Sandy Hook, this guy brings up Sandy Hook. It's fake too. And it's like, oh yeah, it's fake. He goes down on it and then brings it up because his body is saying, no, it is not. No. Sandy Hook is not part of it. Sandy Hook was a complete false flag. Go down. And it had to stutter on it because it didn't match. Comet Ping Pong was their flare out to distract you. Sandy Hook is a different animal. So they don't go together. It's not fake when the conspiracy theorists are saying that it's fake. So the body stuttered on it. There's a discrepancy there is what I'm trying to say. The speculation is ping pong, thrown flare, Sandy Hook. different animal, false flag. I hope I articulated that well enough that most of you can understand.
And he boasts about the fact that this was one of the keys to Trump winning, was that he found these alternative, quote, news outlets that he established a great bond with.
And he's back to petting himself. Look at his fingers over here. He's petting himself.
And that's, someone who was very happy that Donald Trump was elected president.
By the way, petting yourself, the more comfort you need, the higher sensitive areas that you'll pet yourself. People rub hands because fingertips have a lot of sensitivity in them, a whole lot of nerve endings. So when you're petting with your fingertips, you're needing a lot of comfort. When you pet areas that have other high sensitivities, the more sensitive that area is, the more comfort you're needing in that rhetoric. So between the thumb and the forefinger, fingertips to fingertips, forearms, those areas.
The president thinks that's wonderful.
Well, I think you also have to reflect on your own business and the way the mainstream media handled the hack. I know you're going to have others join us.
Yeah.
But I think there was no question really in the technical community that this was being done by the Russians, that they provided the information to Assange, that even I think if you look at the publicity or this forum itself, it's like someone leaked the emails,
right,
John Podesta's emails,
as opposed to
Julian Assange.
There's that closed fist. Someone leaked the emails. It's not an open thing. It's a closed fist, or I shouldn't say completely closed fist, but his hand is closed, as in it's a narrative or wording that he is not going to move on, regardless of what evidence is shown or what comes to light.
Stolen.
As opposed to the Russian
property.
Intelligence.
And again, hammering down, closed fist, Russian intelligence, closed in the mind that he's not going to budge, that it was the Russians.
Stole the emails,
right,
and were in cahoots with Assange.
And then it opens up, whoever it was, cahoots with Assange, which is something he doesn't have to be closed off about, because everybody knows it's Assange. So opened up on Assange because his mind doesn't have to be closed on that, because that's reality. So he doesn't actually have to block any outside influence to who it was, Assange.
Right. Yeah.
And as I said, weaponize the contents of them. So the mainstream media, I think, had a real hard time getting to the bottom of that, of both what the Russians were doing and whatever connections there were between the Trump campaign and what was going
And his body went still on that, whatever connections there were on the Trump campaign.
on the outside.
You
Triggered that.
Oh, and this is ending. No real questions were asked at this interview. There's no confrontational questions other than them talking about the false story of the Comet Ping Pong and Sandy Hook, and that's it. And all we get to see is a body reaction to those stories being brought up. Go tell those YouTubers out there that have cameras and they go and interview people to go get in these people's faces, actually have a good camera angle and confront them on these issues. Now that we could do a body analysis on. Oh, and for the record, because I got asked this question a lot, and I did answer it on Twitter the very first time it was asked to me, but I think it has been buried in the Twitter feed. That recording of John Podesta, or I shouldn't say John Podesta, but what people think is John Podesta, screaming some really obscene, and hearing a child screaming, I have no idea about. I do not do voice analysis. I have no idea. My opinion on it would be as good as Joe Blow down the street. I just have no idea. But if you want to know my opinion, it doesn't sound like the same person. It's got too much of a, New York accent, if that makes sense. That's what it sounds like to me. A forced New York accent. Well, if you liked it, leave a like. If you liked the content, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.